I let her believe she was in control. But while she was busy orchestrating the big day, I was planning something far bigger, something she wouldn't notice until it was too late to undo. And when the wedding album arrived weeks later, she finally realized it all. Before we continue, thank you so much for your support. Every like, comment, and view means the world to us. We're on a mission to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and we'd love for you to be part of that journey. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let's grow together. Now, let's proceed. I had been warned about Claire long before I proposed to Emily. She was Emily's older sister, the self-appointed gatekeeper of all things family tradition, and the unofficial CEO of every gathering, holiday, and event. She didn't just like control, she thrived on it. From the way gifts were opened at Christmas to where people sat during Easter lunch, Claire had an opinion on everything, and if you disagreed, you were doing it wrong. When I told Emily I wanted to propose, her smile was so pure I could have sworn it lit up the whole kitchen. But then she laughed nervously and said, "We'll have to tell Claire together. She gets funny about weddings." I didn't know what funny meant at the time. I thought maybe she'd just get overly emotional or want to help with the planning. But when we sat in her living room and Emily announced the news, Claire's eyes didn't light up, they narrowed. She congratulated Emily first, barely glancing at me, then immediately started rattling off ideas for the venue, catering, and, yes, the photography. Over the next few months, her involvement turned from help into outright dictatorship. She scheduled vendor meetings without asking us, corrected the seating chart I made, and even tried to swap out our dessert table for something she thought was more elegant. The final straw came during an engagement shoot when Claire ordered me out of frame for a sister-only moment. She wasn't joking. She posed with Emily like I was some distant cousin instead of the man about to marry her. I didn't explode. I didn't even argue. I smiled, stepped aside, and let her believe she had won. But that day, as the photographer snapped away, I decided that if she wanted control, she'd get it, just not in the way she expected. I called my friend Daniel, a wedding photographer I trusted implicitly, and explained my idea. He laughed, then got serious. "You're playing a dangerous game, man," he said. "You sure you want to do this?" I told him I was sure. The morning of our wedding was warm, calm, and eerily quiet. I woke before the alarm, staring at the ceiling, replaying every petty little power grab Claire had made over the past year. The arguments over table arrangements, the unsolicited suggestions about my suit color, the constant reminders that I should leave the visual aspects to the ladies. She had no idea I'd been planning something she couldn't control, something she wouldn't even see coming until it was far too late to undo. I got dressed in silence, the sounds of shuffling and chatter drifting in from the hallway where the groomsmen were getting ready. I kept my mind focused on one thing: control. Not hers. Mine. Today, she would be in my space, my event, my life moment, and yet she'd walk away feeling like an uninvited extra in a movie that wasn't about her at all. Daniel, our photographer, had texted me a thumbs-up emoji early that morning, followed by, "Don't worry. She's as good as gone." It gave me a quiet satisfaction that nearly broke my calm facade. When we arrived at the venue, Claire was already in full general mode. She wore a champagne-colored gown that was just a shade too close to white for comfort, something she had probably chosen deliberately. She was moving people like chess pieces, ushers, bridesmaids, even guests still in the lobby. "No, no, no. Aunt Linda doesn't go there. Move her up front," she barked, ignoring the confused looks. I watched her orchestrate the chaos, the corners of my mouth tugging upward. The higher she climbed in her imaginary hierarchy today, the harder she would fall when the pictures came back. Daniel and his assistant got to work almost immediately, pretending to follow Claire's commands, but in reality following mine. Whenever she pushed her way into a group shot, Daniel would adjust the positioning for better lighting or composition, subtly guiding her to the very edge of the frame, just enough to crop her out cleanly later. In the ceremony shots, He used clever angles that blocked her completely behind taller guests or floral arrangements. She thought she was being featured. She wasn't. After the vows, during the family photo session, Claire tried to insert herself between Emily and me in one of the couple portraits for a fun sibling shot. Daniel pretended to be overly concerned about symmetry and asked her to step just 2 feet to the left. That was all it took. She was instantly out of the primary focus area, her face partially obscured by a groomsman's shoulder. I caught Daniel's subtle wink. She didn't. The reception was where I expected her to make her biggest moves, and she didn't disappoint. She hovered near the head table, giving the DJ unsolicited advice, stopping servers mid-step to rearrange plates, even trying to direct the cutting of the cake. But every time she leaned in for a candid photo with Emily, Daniel's assistant would intercept with a perfectly timed request for her to help with lighting or step back for a cleaner shot. She thought she was indispensable. In reality, she was becoming invisible. And then came my favorite part of the plan, the printed details. Weeks earlier, I'd personally handled the guest list and program designs, slipping in a tiny change that I knew would eat at her. Her name was misspelled. Not in an obvious way, but in a subtle, nagging way that made it look like nobody really cared enough to check. Claire instead of Claire. It was on the seating chart, the menu cards, the thank you note on her place setting. I even had the MC announce her during the introductions using the wrong spelling, reading straight from the printed card. She didn't notice at first, but later in the evening, I saw her pick up the menu, pause, and frown. She whispered something to Emily, who looked confused and shrugged. Claire scanned the rest of the cards, clearly realizing the mistake wasn't isolated. She looked up at me then, a strange expression on her face, somewhere between suspicion and disbelief. I raised my glass to her in a slow, deliberate toast. By the time the night was winding down, Claire had no idea just how thoroughly the day had been documented without her. She thought she'd been everywhere, front and center in every key moment. She had no clue she'd been physically present but photographically erased. As Emily and I danced our last song, I caught Daniel's eye across the room. He held up his camera and mouth. Got it all. That was the moment I knew the trap was complete. The next step would be patience. Patience until the photos were delivered, until her own need to see herself shining in our wedding album became the trigger for her downfall. I went to bed that night with the satisfaction of a man who knew the final act of his revenge was already in motion, and there was nothing Claire could do to stop it. 3 weeks after the wedding, the album was ready. Daniel messaged me first, not Emily, as we'd agreed. He'd sent me a private preview link with one short line. "You're going to love this." I waited until I was alone in my office to open it. The photos loaded slowly, each frame a little masterpiece of manipulation. Claire wasn't just absent. She was erased like she had never existed that day. In wide shots of the ceremony, her head was blocked by an arch of flowers. In reception images, her body was conveniently hidden behind guests, champagne flutes, or even out-of-focus decor in the foreground. Where she did appear in the raw shots, she'd been cropped so close out of frame that she was nothing but a sliver of fabric or a blurred arm. It was art. Revenge art. I lingered on a few of the best ones. Moments I remembered clearly. The cake cutting, for example. I could still recall how she hovered behind us, offering helpful directions about knife placement. In the final version, she was gone, replaced by a soft bouquet glow that made it look like Emily and I were alone in the world. The first dance. No trace of her clapping awkwardly near the edge of the dance floor. It was as if Daniel had built a parallel universe where Claire had never attended at all. I saved the album link for later. The real show would be at Sunday dinner at Emily's parents' house, where the entire family would be gathered. That was my stage. That was my moment. When we arrived, Claire was already there, laughing loudly with a glass of wine in hand. She was dressed to the nines, as though Sunday dinner was a gala event. "So, when do we get to see the wedding photos?" she asked the second we walked in. She didn't even greet me, just beelined for Emily and wrapped her arm around her. "After dinner," I said, keeping my tone light. Let's make it a family reveal. All through the meal, I could feel her anticipation radiating across the table. She kept making little comments. Oh, I hope you got the one where I adjusted the veil. Or the bouquet toss shot will be hilarious. I was right next to Emily. Each remark was a dagger of ego, and each one made the coming reveal even sweeter. Finally, plates were cleared, coffee was poured, and I set my laptop on the table, connecting it to the TV for everyone to see. I queued up the slideshow and hit play. The room fell into that rare hush that only happens when people are truly watching something. The first images rolled by, ceremony shots, close-ups of rings, beaming guests. Claire leaned forward slightly in her chair, smiling at first, then frowning just a little. More photos passed. Group shots with Emily's side of the family. Bridesmaids laughing. Me with my groomsmen. Still, she wasn't there. She straightened up, probably thinking her moment was still to come. By the 10th photo, the subtle shift in her face was undeniable. She was searching now, eyes darting from side to side. A wide shot of the ceremony appeared. She should have been visible in the second row. Instead, a decorative arch and the heads of other guests blocked her entirely. Her smile froze. Then came the reception photos. Toasts, dances, cake cutting, moments where she had hovered. I knew it, because I'd been there. Yet here she was, erased, replaced by clever framing and perfect cropping. By now, her wine glass was sitting untouched, her hand gripping the stem like it might shatter. Wait, where am I in these? She asked finally, her voice carrying that false casualness that cracks under pressure. I glanced at her, feigning confusion. Huh? You weren't in most of those moments, I guess. Maybe you were busy helping with things. I was right there, she said, a little louder now, leaning toward the TV. During the cake cutting, during the bouquet toss, Emily frowned. That's weird. I remember you being close by. Oh, maybe the lighting just wasn't right, I said smoothly. Daniel might have had to work around it. He's a professional. He knows what makes a photo look clean. We moved through the last set of pictures. Beautiful, intimate couple shots, candid moments with friends and family. But not one image where Claire's face was visible. Not a single one. The slideshow ended, and the silence that followed was delicious. Claire's face had gone pale, her mouth slightly open. This is ridiculous, she said finally. You did this on purpose. I met her eyes and let the smallest smile curve my lips. Claire, it's our wedding album. We wanted it to be about us. You understand, right? Her jaw clenched. Emily looked between us, sensing something but not quite piecing it together. Claire pushed her chair back abruptly and stood, muttering something about unbelievable pettiness as she stormed out of the room. After she left, Emily turned to me. What was that about? I sipped my coffee and shrugged. Guess she didn't like the lighting. The following week, I heard through the grapevine that Claire had complained to every relative about being cut out of the wedding photos. But the more she talked, the more people seemed to remember all the times she had overstepped, controlled, or made the day about herself. By the end of the month, she'd stopped bringing it up entirely, probably realizing she'd only made herself look worse. The album, meanwhile, sat on our coffee table at home, perfect, polished, and blissfully Claire-free. Every time I flipped through it, I felt that quiet, deep satisfaction that comes not from yelling or fighting, but from winning so completely the other person never gets a second chance. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us.